and welcome to your Gay Awakening podcast. I cannot believe the day is finally here and the first episode is out. I kid you not, I have been working on this for the past few months. And so to finally see this come to life has been really exciting and really rewarding. And I just really hope that you love all of these conversations that we have. And I just can't imagine a better way to kick off this entire show than with my conversation with Wanda from the Wanda Band. We connected a few years ago over social media, and I've continued to follow their journey and music. And so I'm really excited to have Wanda here today to talk a little bit about what that's been like over the past few years and what they've been working on currently. Last year, they actually put out a new record, and so I'm going to have a Spotify playlist that's going to accompany the show. So please be sure to go ahead and add that to your library so you can kind of stay up to date with not only the new episodes, but also the really amazing music that these artists are putting out. And of course, for any of the creatives that I talk to that don't actively put out music, they're going to be sharing, some of their influences, their current listens. So it's just going to be a really amazing collaborative playlist. So I really hope you check it out. If you want to support the show, support any of the guests that are going to be here, please be sure to check out the show description. It's going to have all of the links on where you can support us. And no more procrastinating. Let's just jump right into it with our very first episode of Your Gay Awakening podcast. Hi, hello, this is Hunter, and I'm very excited today to be joined with Wanda from the Wanda Band from down in Alabama. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Hunter.
Yeah, I'm really excited, and I thought it would be great to just kick everything off and maybe just do an introduction on who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Hi, everybody, and hello, Hunter. I know that we've only ever known each other on the internet, so this is our first face-to-face meeting. I guess FaceTime. I don't know, whatever. Anyway,
Mhm.
I'm Wanda. I'm from Wanda Band. I'm from Huntsville, Alabama, and I've been performing here in North Alabama for about 15 years now. And I started the Wanda Band about 5 years ago now. And yeah, I love music and I love people, and I'm glad to be here today.
That is so cool because I was wondering because, like, obviously we followed each other for a while on social media, and so
hmm
it's really interesting because I know you just put out a new record back in August, and
Yes.
so it was interesting because as I was, like, listening to it, I realized that the first song that y'all had ever put out was in 2020. So is that, like, the first official single that y'all ever did, or have you ever put out other stuff?
Yeah, actually, so that was the first Wanda Band like recording that we
Oh,
ever put
wow.
out. And before that, I had put out some self-produced and self-released stuff like up on Bandcamp. I think as early as like probably 2011 or 2012 when I was in high school, and I had put out um, two self-released albums and a Christmas album before I met the Wanda
Oh,
Band.
wow.
Yeah, and so I met Andrew, my bass player, at an open mic night he was hosting, and I told him like he liked my music and he checked it out on Bandcamp, and he was like, "You should start a band." And so the rest is history. We kind of like he had joined the band. He had created the band at first, and then it turned into something else, and then it fell off. And then I recreated it and asked him to come back. And that's when Nick Riccio, our drummer, joined us. And so it's just the three of us. And we record in Green Hill, Alabama with Jay Burgess, and he's our producer and collaborator. And so the three men that I just mentioned and myself make up the Wanda Band. So it's been really fun and I love it.
That's so crazy. So you were playing for I mean, so you said you've been playing for 15 years, and then pretty much since around maybe like 2019, 2020 is when you really formed the Wanda Band. Before that was just you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I was doing it from a very early age, just kind of like busking around town and playing like cover gigs and stuff. But I started writing my own stuff like later, like maybe like 16, 17.
Oh, wow. That is so crazy. So,
Mhm.
what's been, I guess, a big difference joining forces with all of the band versus doing it on your own? Like, do you prefer being in that environment with lots of other people, or are you kind of like a writer that's more like introverted, writing on your own and then kind of coming together?
That's a really great question because as you say that, I kind of believe that I'm both of those things. And that is what is so interesting about the Wanda Band is that it helped me like discover this part of my personality that I had almost like forgotten about, I guess, because I was such like a broody, like alone writer in my eyes,
Hmm.
especially in my early writing years, because I thought that that's what you're supposed to do. If you're like an artist, you're supposed to be like isolated and self destructive and introspective. But I quickly learned that like when you don't let people in, you kind of just stay on this loop and there's not a lot of growth because there's not a lot of accountability. And so I like started the Wand Band and it's like, okay, suddenly I'm playing with people who are really amazing and really professional and kind and cool. And so it's like I'm learning how to exist in the musician world, you know, by working with them and I'm getting better as a player because they're so good and it's like I've got to practice now because like my drummer has he's a metronome. And so it's like when I don't have it, then we don't have, you know what I'm saying? And it's like it just makes
Yeah.
you realize all of these things like to play music with other people and to collaborate. I mean, I still mostly write all of the songs by myself, but I'm getting more comfortable now with co-writing. It's hard for me to socially co-write. Do
Mhm.
you do a lot of co-writing?
I don't. And so that's the thing I find so interesting because it's like I know that there's this like part of being a songwriter where it's like almost like really with anything that you do, even, work projects or whatever, where it's like you can do things on your own and it can still turn out really great. But it's
Yeah.
like once you're able to get that outside input or like contributions of like other people, where it's like, I would have never thought that. Or even if it's as simple as switching the lines around a different way, it's like, I would have maybe never even thought of that. So it's like, I've maybe done like a couple co-writes ever, but I am so like socially anxious in co-writing environments because I've always been an alone songwriter. So I
Yeah.
totally get what you mean there.
Yeah, it's very different, but at the same time, I think it's a great exercise in like I don't know, I think it makes you a stronger songwriter. It makes myself a
Yeah.
stronger songwriter, but it's like because before it's like, okay, I guess this song's done, here it is, whatever. And then you just get feedback from like presenting it to people. But it's like when you're asking people, like, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think I should do with this? Like, all that kind of stuff. Or even sometimes, like, I'll just send Andrew, our bass player, I'll just send him lyrics and he'll come up with
Mhm.
the music because
Oh,
I
wow.
get really stuck in the loop of like
Mhm.
playing the same old same. Like, I'm a very much like two, three, or four chord gal. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I'm like, okay, this is either going to loop with two chords, three chords, or four chords. And I
Mhm.
get stuck in these little ruts of songwriting. But I also love the simplicity of that because Tom Petty did a lot of that. And so it's like, I don't know. I like being non-pretentious musically, but it's also like kind of fun to give my lyrics away because they're always structured, right? It's like a
Mhm.
poem. And so it's like, okay, take this structure and do what you hear. And it always comes out with like something beautiful. Like our song on our most recent album, that was a single called I Said Nothing, was like my lyrics, and I sent them to Andrew and he came up with the music and it turned into this like hauntingly beautifully sad bop. You know what I mean? And I would have never
Yeah.
come up with that music by myself. So collaborating has been very, very fruitful for me.
That's so cool. And so I'm
Mhm.
curious, even as you've been diving into this like collaboration process, at what point did you start working with your producer?
That was like 2019. Um,
So pretty
Jay.
early.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
wow.
was probably like 24 and I met Jay, and he had just come off the road with Dylan LeBlanc, and he was like touring all the time. And so he was like getting back into like recording, and then the
Mhm.
pandemic hit. So he had nothing to do but work on our album. And we became really good friends. And I eventually moved to where he lives. And just became like, I don't know, I trust him a lot. And we have
Mhm.
this really good rapport going. And like, I don't know, he has this way of like sucking me into the studio for like 8 hours, and I don't even notice it because he's so nonchalant and very
Yeah.
not moody. It's like, I'll finish a take and he'll be like, "Cool, let's grab another." And I'll finish a take and be like, "Cool, let's grab another." And it's like, I didn't even realize we just did like 8 takes in a row because there's like no time in between. And he's like, "Okay, I got what I need. Let's make a comp." And then it's like, boom, there's the vocal. Like, what the heck?
That is so awesome.
He knows exactly what he's doing, and so we're able to record in, like, I think both of our albums that we've put out, like, the first album we recorded in, like, 5 or 6 days total, and the second album we recorded in the same, probably, like, 5 or 6 days total.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's the rest of it's just mixing,
Yeah.
just getting
Well,
it
and that's
right.
what's so crazy because, I mean, up until a few years ago, I hadn't really ever, especially like with the band, ever worked with a producer before, and then ended up meeting a really great one that lived in Atlanta, just through
Mhm.
Instagram and stuff. And he
Yeah,
now, his name is Brandon. He now lives in Nashville, but it was like one of those things where I had never up until that point worked with somebody, and it's just
yeah,
so interesting because they really have this way of just, like, pulling out the best parts of the song and then
yes.
bringing it to the next level, and that's just, like, something that's so interesting about production that I just, like, up until a few years ago, had no idea that that even, like, existed.
Ugh, it's amazing too, and I love, like, for me personally, like, working with Jay, I love that he is, like, from the Muscle Shoals area because
Mhm.
he gets live music in a way that, like, a lot of music I feel like isn't recorded that way anymore, but the Muscle Shoals way, like, the Fame studio way, it's like everybody's in the same room and we're gonna record the song, and that's what we're capturing, and so he's always after, like, the moment,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? And so it's like, we'll do, like, 5 to 6 takes of a song, and he'll be like, "I have what I need," and we'll move on. And it's like, that's what you hear is like the band. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
wow. So you really capture, like, the live energy in the recording.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
we try to keep it that traditional way. At least I do. I love recording live, and I feel like I sing better when I've got the band with me and I'm really honed in and I'm playing the guitar, like, I don't know, I sing better in the studio with the guitar in my hands. It's the weirdest thing. If I'm just, like, sitting there like, "Yeah," I have to, like, do weird things with my arms and my hands because 'cause I'm like, "What do I do with my hands?" I'm used to singing with a guitar in my hand.
Yeah.
So, it's just better for me, personally, to sing and play at the same time in the studio.
That is so cool. So when you all sat down to record the album, did that look like were you all in the same room? Do you kind of all go off in different rooms? Like how are you able to like capture that live sound all together?
Yeah, so the way that we record is up in Jay's studio in Green Hill called Studio 144, and it's literally just like, it's, like, right above a garage, and so it's, like, a big room, like the live room, and then there's a
Mhm.
small, like, sound booth, I guess, and that's where the control room is too, so it's, like, me and Jay will be in the same room together
Mhm.
where the control board is, and then, Andrew and Nick will be out in the live room together right there next to each other so that, the rhythm is super tight. And then my guitar amp will be in the stairwell,
Oh,
like leading up to
wow.
the attic. Yeah. And so that's what he captures just like that. And so like all the takes, he's in the room with me. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of really
Yeah.
it's nice to have someone in there with me. But I can hear Andrew and Nick as clear as I need to. And if I have a headphone off one ear, I can still
Mhm.
hear Nick booming in the room, like in the next room. So it's like still got that live, like I'm in the room with them. We've
Yeah.
never done it with all three of us. I'd be interested to do that. But whenever I do an acoustic song, a couple of our songs on our albums have been like totally acoustic and it's just me and a guitar. And that was done in the big live room. So
Oh, wow. That is
yeah.
so cool. I love that
Yeah.
you guys do that.
Thanks. I love talking about it.
It's so interesting because it's like one of those things where it's like obviously everybody has like a different way that they like go about recording and everything. So I think it's just so interesting, especially from being from where you're from and then pulling that inspiration from like Muscle Shoals and everything, and then incorporating that into the sound that you're producing.
Yeah.
Also, like around the area, I just think is so just interesting. And
Yeah.
I know that you kind of even mentioned like Tom Petty in there. I'm just curious, like, who are some of your influences? If you had to like pinpoint anybody that's had like a huge inspiration on whether it be like the songwriting process or the music or the vibe that you try to aim for.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, immediately Tom Petty comes to mind, and obviously the Beatles. Like, I've always been a Beatles kid. I have a Beatles tattoo. I just grew up on them. And I love Joni Mitchell, but honestly, more contemporary, like I love Brittany Howard and Brandy Carlisle and
Yeah.
Phoebe Bridgers and all of Boy Genius, basically. I've seen all of them individually live, and I would be lying if I didn't say they inspired the shit out of me, as well as like Soccer Mommy and Snail Mail, like those indie bands, and like Courtney Barnett is a huge inspiration to me. And the Avett Brothers, especially early in my songwriting days, I do a lot of like sad folky stuff. I guess my music is kind of folky, and everyone in Muscle Shoals and everyone in North Alabama, all of my peers inspire me the most. There's something in the water. Okay, like around here, all the music is good. Everybody can play the crap out of their instruments and write songs. I'm like shocked every day. And I run an open mic night and a lot of young songwriters and performers come through and they inspire me too. It's just like I get inspiration from everybody, but those names mainly are the ones that I love.
That is awesome. So how long have you been running the open mic?
I've been doing it since 2020. I did it at a brewery, then I did it at a coffee shop, and now we're doing it at a tap room. And it's moved a few different places, but I feel like this third place is like really good. There's I don't know, for me, did you ever go to open mic nights when you were younger or currently?
So I've been to maybe like one or two, but I didn't ever have any around when I was growing up that I knew of at
Wow.
least. And so it was just like one of those things where it was like I was already like pretty much playing music by the time I figured out, oh my God, there's just a place where you can go play with other
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. It's so important, I think. I got my start at open mic nights. There's always been a ton around here, and so my first open mic night was, like, 16, and that's when I started, like, trying to write songs because there was an open mic night that only allowed original music, and I don't know, I just found that to be so formative and important for my growth, and when I realized that, I was like, "I have to throw my own open mic night," because there are none for the kids. Like, all the ones around here turned into bar open mic nights, 21 and older. And so I'm like, we need something for the kids because we don't even know how many talented kids there are around here, and they need a place to play for sure.
Definitely. So would you say that kind of your start in open mics is what inspired you to kind of start your own series of open mics?
Absolutely. It it had almost everything to do with it.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
like I just realized like well, first of all, and I also need it too. Like I need to stay close to my roots. You know what I mean? And like
Yeah.
it's important to be around young, inspired people who and older inspired people. Like my open mic night has, ages 5 have come up on stage to like ages 72 kind of
Oh,
thing.
wow.
And so it's like being around people of all walks of life who all have music in common, I think is kind of like church to me. And it's just important for my mental health to look forward to that time, and talk to these people.
Yeah. That is so cool. So do you do this pretty much every week then, or how often do you host these?
We do this the first Thursday of every month, so once a month, because every week gets really tiring and every other week gets hard to keep up with. So
Yeah.
we've tried it a couple different times, and I'm like, once a month is perfect. It's a sweet spot.
Mhm.
So,
Definitely. And
yeah.
you're getting ready to leave for tour, is that correct?
Yes. So my producer, who I told you guys about earlier, Jay, he is in a band called the Pollies. And most recently, he's in a band called Billy Allen and the Pollies. And they are amazing. Billy Allen is an incredible singer. And Jay and Billy and a few of the other guys like co-wrote these songs. They're like undeniably catchy. And I'm such a huge fan. And so I had joked to Jay, like, if you don't watch out, I'm gonna quit my job and jump on the bus with you guys and sell your merch and tour manage. And he was like, do it. And so we did it. I was like, okay, cool, let's do it. I don't know. I've never done something like that. And I want to tour eventually with the Wanda Band, but it's just
Mhm.
such a like mystery to me. And so being able to like have the experience of seeing what it really is like from people who know how to do it
Yeah.
is like such a valuable experience to me that I'm like, it would be dumb not to just take this opportunity to jump in the van and like have my almost famous moment. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Yeah.
So it's been really fun. We go out on the road next week. We're going to Chicago and we're going to go down to Texas in March. And it's just going to be a lot of fun. We just got back from a run up in New England. We did some Philly gigs in DC and New York. And I've never really been to those
Mhm.
places for real, so it's been really awesome.
That's so cool. So during that experience, obviously, like, I feel touring or even like playing live shows as like kind of like a small indie band, is definitely a different environment than, other touring artists out there, especially if, they're doing it for a living. I'm
Yeah.
curious, like, in those two experiences that you've had, was there something that you maybe like learned from being out on the road recently that you would maybe like want to implement, the next time you and the Wanda Band go out on the road? Like, was there any like key moments that like really stuck out to you during that experience?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I was thinking about, just pure logistics the other day. One day we woke up in Philly because we had played a show there that night, and then we drove to DC, and we spent some time at the Smithsonian and, like, ate, and then we went and did load in, played the show, and then we drove to Richmond to sleep. And I was like, "Whoa, we were 3 places today." And, like, I don't know, I just don't really think that I would be like, "Yeah, that seems like something that we should do," but it's, like, the best way to manage our time, and so it, like, made sense for us to be 3 different places in one day,
Yeah.
and we even had time to, like, go to a museum, and I was like, the time management and, like, the logistics of, like, planning where you're gonna sleep and, like, finding all these places and mapping out how long it's gonna take, and it was just, like, really eye-opening because I am bad at managing my time, and I am a very much like, "I'm gonna show up right on time." Like, if you said this was at 10, I'm gonna be coming into the Zoom at 10.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so it's just like it's good to be early. I don't know, and it's okay to, like, break up your drives. You don't have to do, like, 8-hour drives. You could do 4-hour drives and then sleep at a friend's house, and that's another thing that's been eye-opening is, like, reach out to your community, that or, like, there were people that put us up in their houses that, like, have known the band for years, and it's like, "Oh, yeah, every time they come through,
Oh, wow.
we sleep at their house," kind of a thing. And
Mhm.
it's like finding tour angels is so important. I'm like, there should be a website or a directory called like tourangels.com. It's like if you want to like
Literally.
take care of traveling musicians, then like register. You know? It's
Yeah.
like being able to like rely on other people is so important because I tend to be like very hyper independent almost to a toxic level where it's like I'm going to spend all my money on this because that's just what you do and you can't ask for help. And it's like, don't do that. That's what I've
Yeah.
learned the most from tour is just how to manage my time and how to find your community on the tour is really important.
That is so interesting. And I mean, you bring up such a good point because I don't know how it affected the area around where you're from, but I definitely feel like I noticed like even a bit of a shift even around the Nashville area where it was like, you know, before COVID, it was like lots of house shows, lots of it felt like a real community vibe. And
Yeah.
then, you know, COVID happened, we were all inside. And I know even for me coming out of that experience, even now, 4 years later, I know that like even socially, there, you know, was definitely some sort of an impact there. I mean, obviously, even around the community, there's less house shows, things like that. So I'm just curious, like, have you felt that even during that time that we were kind of stuck inside, were you able to cultivate community online or in any other way? Were you able to still like stay connected? Because you seem pretty interconnected with the like Alabama music community on a whole. So were you able to still like stay pretty connected during that time, or were you just like mostly just anxious to get back into it?
For me, I mean, you bring up an interesting point, first of all, with like the pre-COVID environment versus the post-COVID environment, which is something I think about so much because I know all of these people who were like really active on the level I want to be post or pre-COVID. And now post-COVID, the entire system is like flipped on its head and so different.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was trying to like reach for the level that I'm at, like in the post COVID world where it's way harder. Nobody knows what's happening. So many clubs closed. Like, you know, tech companies have totally murdered musicians' royalties and like they're stealing essentially from us. And it's like crazy, just the world that we live in and the music environment that we have. And not to mention like TikTok, it's like really, really insane, uncharted territories. And so I've just found like myself to be like, I don't really know the difference, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
between the pre-COVID and the post-COVID, because I was trying to get in the game during COVID. But the way that I stayed connected was just like through online resources, through like Instagram and following people and like spending so much time on the screen. It's like, okay, I wonder like what their music sounds like. I never got around to listening to that because I'm so busy working 5 jobs or something. And it's like having all of that downtime to just kind of like absorb other people's art as well as like dive into your own, I feel like was really important for me. And I feel like, you know, it's unpopular opinion, but this was just my personal experience. COVID was actually very transformative for me in those years and really important. I think in a positive way, and it helped me like become who I am today. And like you said, like, oh, there's not a lot of house shows. It's like I noticed that too. It's since like me and my friends started throwing house shows, like in the 2021 post COVID world, and
Mhm.
we did stuff in the backyard, and we like I had an album release show with the garage doors open. Everyone's wearing a mask. It's like we had to like create our own thing in the post COVID world and I don't know, I think that things are getting to be more DIY, and I think that that's really cool. And it's like, if you're listening to this podcast and you want house shows to happen, make one happen. You have a house, throw a house show. Let's do it. Like, book your favorite band, feed them. Like, it takes all of us to like work against this big machine that is like almost destroying music as we know it.
Yes, and you bring up such a good point though, because it really is, especially as an artist doing it all yourself, you're independent, like you really do have to like create your own opportunities. Like nothing's just gonna come at you. Like if you want to make art, you have to be deliberate in your approach to
Yes.
actively do that. Actively going into like with you and the band, actively going into the studio, actively putting out records, like regardless of how other people are perceiving what you're doing, it's about being consistent because that's the thing that people are
Yes.
really going to pick up on. I mean, I know that's one of the biggest things I feel like even as I've been following you online is it's you guys have always been consistent in everything that you do and it's just such a draw.
Thank you. I was just thinking before this that I was looking at your page and I'm like, y'all's video content is so on point and it's like so like there's so much continuity and I'm like that's something that I wish I had. You know what I mean? And it's like you were saying like DIY, it's like when you're a musician nowadays, you do not get to be discovered. Like no
Yeah.
one's going to be like you're going to be a star, kid. We're going to give you
Uh-huh.
$1 million. Like no. You have to discover yourself You have to create your own content, make your own brand, do all of this unpaid labor, essentially. And it's like crazy because it's like, what do we really want to be doing? Well, we want to be writing songs, we want to be performing. It's like, but now I got to go to a video shoot and I got to like pay a videographer because we need to have this content and all of this stuff. And it's like this whole different thing. You know what I mean?
It is. It's so different. I mean, have you seen the movie The Runaways? It has like Kristen Stewart, all about like Joan Jett, The Runaways, all that vibe. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that when I first watched it, which to be honest, was like only a few years ago. I was kind of late to it, but I finally watched it and watching the difference, like knowing the perspective that we have now, where it's like very like online and like you can pretty much do everything on your own. And then seeing their journey at the beginning, especially being so young and going through all of that, but then just the added difference in how it all happened, it's
Yeah.
just crazy to see the difference.
Yeah. It's insane. They're not going to take a chance on you. They're gonna like because now it's like essentially your social media account is a resume or like
Yeah,
they can run these numbers through a statistic algorithm that's gonna tell them the probability of you making them money, you know? And then it's like, okay, do you really even wanna get discovered online? Because then these record labels are gonna give you this advance that's gonna, like, really entice you, and then you're gonna be in debt to
and you
them, they're gonna
already and you
own all the
already
rights to
did
your
all of
music,
the work.
and you did all of that labor. It's, like, best for us to stay indie, and it's best for us to stick together as independent musicians and kind of uplift each other and create this network, you know what I mean? It's like,
Absolutely.
all these bands in all these cities, like, we can all help each other tour. We can
Yeah.
all do that together by show swapping or by telling like, referencing this, and, like, every time someone reaches out and needs me to play a show, I'm like, "I can't play it, but here's all the people I know who probably can." Give them something, you know what I mean? Because it's like, I want you guys to come play a show here. I
Yeah.
wanna come meet you. I wanna come see your show, whatever, but it's like, I don't know, TikTok has taken over and Spotify, these are bad words in my house,
Right,
like
right. But I think you bring up such a good point that it really is up to us to uplift each other and to highlight each and I mean that's even like one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to start this podcast because I know like for me personally, especially like when you're a female artist or a queer artist, it's like sometimes you can only find a platform to position yourself and showcase your music when given opportunities from other women or other queer artists. So it's like I wanted to use this as a way to just be a platform to uplift the people that I admire so much in like the queer music community. And I'm
yeah.
curious, for you, are there any like other like queer artists, whether you've found them on TikTok or they've, obviously were like a songwriter in the past. Like, is there anybody that's like really spoken to you and like inspired that part of your journey? Like, because obviously there's almost like this interweb of like who you are as a musician and then obviously like who we are as like people at home, like living our everyday lives.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I can think of several, and one that immediately comes to mind that is a friend of mine is my friend Nicole Swims, who lives in Seattle. They play in a band called Black Ends, and we met here in Huntsville, and they were like, "I wanna move to Seattle and start my band, and, like, I need to get out of here," and I was like, "You absolutely do," and it's like, "Get the hell out of here. This is not your scene. Go make a splash," and so they went to Seattle and started Black Ends,
Oh,
and they've done
wow.
so well, and that's, like, who comes immediately to mind, as well as
Hmm.
Brittany Howard. I mean, Brittany Howard is from this area. Brittany Howard is, obviously queer and Black and, like, makes incredible music and is a Grammy award-winning musician. I'm like, that was always so inspiring to me, and one of the things that inspired me the most was, like, I think when Brittany wrote Georgia, she was like, "I needed to have, like, a crush song for my inner child." Like, if
Yeah.
little Brittany could hear this song about being in love with a woman and being confused about the feelings as a kid, like, I don't know, like, I think that that's so cool
Yeah.
that she, like, intentionally wrote from that perspective to almost, like, be that song that she needed to hear, and I don't know, also this I have a friend named LG who would say, like, I think her, Instagram bio is, like, the greatest Southern queer rock and roll band or whatever, and it's true, Thelma and the Sleaze. I think that they used to be Nashville-based, but, um, they're freaking awesome and have inspired me in many ways, and everybody inspires
Yeah,
me. Brandy
that is
Carlisle.
so incredible.
Yeah, for real. What about you? Who inspires you?
Well, it's so funny that you say that because for me personally, and this was, I guess, more of like a gay awakening moment, I guess. I mean, definitely some inspiration there, but for me, it was like I remember first coming across the music of Paris and Lynn Gunn and the songwriting and the production. And for me, it was like such an eye-opening experience because I was finally finding music that I really vibed with, like, where I was from, I just didn't necessarily feel like I had found my community yet, and then
Yeah.
it was like, I heard the music, and then also it was, like, one of those moments where, again, being from a small town, it was like, "Oh, like, she dates girls. That's possible." Like, I had never been, like, really exposed to that, and then it was just, like, one of those, like, first clicking moments of, like,
Yeah.
part of that awakening inside of me, which didn't really even get to fully come to fruition until way later. Like, I was, already out of Ohio, like, in Tennessee, like, and then
Yeah.
starting to experience that. Did you have any moments like that, like, whether it was, like, growing up or, like, even over the years where it was, like, that awakening moment?
Oh, yeah, the first time I heard Lady Lamb. I don't know if you're a Lady Lamb fan.
Really?
Do you know Lady Lamb?
I'm not super familiar.
Okay, you
So
gotta
now I'm,
listen to
like,
Lady
writing a
Lamb.
little note that I need to go listen to this immediately.
Yes, when I was, like, 19, I think, I heard "Ripely Pine" by Lady Lamb, and it was, like, the most cinematic, like, rock and roll queer yearning album I've ever heard, and it, like, gave me a voice for all of my confusing queer heartache that I wasn't really sure about. Like,
Mhm.
I had, like, a big crush on, like, one of my friends from college, and it was my first girl crush, and it was really crushing, and it broke me, and it was so confusing, and that album, like, gave me a voice, and it gave a voice to my pain, and it also was, like, catharsis, and I think that that is, like, one of the most important albums of my life because I wrote so much after that, just being like you were saying, it's like, I didn't know that you could date women or, like, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? It's like you need that representation just to even give yourself permission to be who you are or feel how you feel, you know?
Yeah, absolutely, and I mean, I think it's just so interesting. I mean, you talking about, like, Britney and just even, like, thinking about some of the songs that I've written, and I'm curious, even songs that you've written where it's like, we can finally be that representation that, hopefully down the line, whether or not, they find our music, hopefully somebody that connects with that story and needs that in that moment, like, can find it and connect with it.
Yeah, definitely. I wrote a song called "The Reggae Song," and it's on our most recent album, and it's, like, very on the nose, but it's very intentional, and it's just about how I wanna have sex with a woman. I don't know, that's what the song is about, and
Mhm.
I wrote it as a joke because I was just, like, getting tired of, like, being in the South and kinda feeling like the only person who's out and, like, having to deal with no, I hate to say deal with, having to, like,
Navigate.
encounter
Yeah.
and navigate interpersonal relationships where people aren't comfortable with their sexuality, but I am,
Mhm. Yeah.
and it's really trying after so many times, and it's, like, feeling like the only gay person around, feeling like the only person who wants that kind of a thing. It's like, I'm just gonna write a song about what I want. And I thought it was just a fun tongue-in-cheek thing, but a lot of people after I released it were like, "This is how I feel."
That's incredible. I love that.
I mean, sometimes you just gotta write the ridiculous song that takes your feelings and hyperbolizes them and makes fun of them and also gives it, permission to be.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
This has been so amazing to just get to chat all about, everything that you've been working on and just even this like connection between like forming identity with like being an artist, like how to really commingle those 2 things. So,
Mhm.
I'm curious, do you have anything coming up? Like any new songs, anything you wanna promote?
Promotion-wise, let's think about this. Honestly, I just wanna say, like, check out my albums. I have first album, One Hit, my second album, Only Feeling. Only Feeling just came out. If you guys do anything, stream a couple songs, it would really help us out, and we're just trying to make sure that the music goes where it needs to go and everyone hears it. And that's pretty much it. I don't have much else going on right now, but stay tuned and follow the Wanda Band for more information.
Awesome, perfect. Well, I know our Zoom is getting ready to close out on us, but I just want to thank you again for being a part of this with me and doing this. This was a lot of fun, and hopefully, we'll get to see each other in person someday. Whether it's in Nashville or Alabama, we have to make it happen.
Hey, we don't live far away. Let's just have a coffee date. I'll hit you up.
Yeah, let's do it.